Back when I had two legs, back when I was a 9-year-old boy whose only dream it was to get on a travel soccer team, to wear the lime green uniform of this travel soccer team. It's all back before I lost my leg. And I couldn't have imagined the things that have happened since. Things like the fact that I get to do this. This is my job, that I travel around, I speak at conferences like yours, I speak at high schools, at conventions, at businesses across the country. It's the best job in the world. Things like the fact that I have a YouTube channel. I made a video a couple years ago called The Amputee Rap. It became extremely popular, and since then I've built this audience on YouTube. Things like the fact that I got to write a book about my life, which became a national bestseller. In fact, earlier tonight, I ran into one of your district officers on the elevator. He told me he had read my book, and it's like the coolest thing to know that you went through these things in your life, and now those things are in a book or in a speech form, and now they give meaning to other people. I tell you all this because you too have some sort of disability, some sort of problem, some sort of limp, if you will. But this is the way I like to say it. For me, in my life, what I've found is that sometimes you can turn your limp into a pimp walk. No, listen carefully. This is what I mean. You can take that problem, you can take that challenge, and you can learn something from it. You can allow it to make you stronger as a person. Listen, you guys are into service. Let me tell you something. Like almost all the time, and you probably already know this, but if you haven't figured it out yet, you soon will. It's the thing in your life that has wounded you the most, that has broken you the hardest, that is going to give you the most passion to serve others. It's the very area of your life in which you are broken that you are going to have passion, that you are going to have empathy to other people who are similarly broken, and you're going to want to work with them to repair them, to put their lives back together. That is what adversity does. It fuels that passion that you have for service. Because make no mistake, man, life is tough. I remember the day that I was going to have my leg amputated. I remember checking into the hospital with my mom and my dad. At this point, I'd been on crutches for about 3 months because of the chemotherapy that I was on, and I wasn't supposed to walk on my leg, right? Because I had cancer in it. It was like this tumor in my femur. It was very fragile. In fact, I had a 50% chance to live. And I remember sitting down in between my mom and my dad in that waiting room. And I remember bending over and wrapping my arms around my left leg. And I just remember it was like so quiet in that room. And not just quiet in like an audio sort of way, like quiet in like there just wasn't a future left for me. It was like my life was over, you know? You go through life imagining these certain things are going to happen to you in the future, right? And you're like, oh, this will happen, and I'll do this, and then I'll do this. But for me, all of a sudden, it was like I had a 50% chance to live. And even if I lived, I was going to have one leg. I was never going to be a soccer player. It's like, what? Like, I looked into the future, you know, and I just saw nothing. I saw silence. Maybe you've had moments like that. Eventually, this doctor and nurse came in, and the nurse, she was pushing an empty wheelchair. And the doctor, he looked down at me and he said, we're ready to take you back now. And I looked at that wheelchair. And I looked at him. And I said, I think that I am going to walk. I'll never forget walking down that corridor. If you've ever spent any time in the hospital, you know you wear those brown terry cloth socks that have the rubber strips on the bottom. And I remember I could feel that, you know, that cool linoleum floor underneath those brown terry cloth socks. And I knew that it was, you know, those were the last steps that I was going to take with 2 legs. we all, as human beings, have moments where it just feels like everything's over. Silence. And in those moments, I think the best that we can hope for is the courage to stand and the strength to walk and the determination to carry forward that torch of service. I had another 9 months of chemotherapy after that. So in total, I was on treatment for a year. I spent about 100 nights in the hospital. But towards the end of that year, I had the opportunity to learn how to ski. And 3 years later, I was declared cured of the cancer. 3 years after that, when I was 16 years old, I started ski racing. And I started ski racing because I felt like, I had missed out on this thing as a child. When my friends were out, competing and playing soccer and baseball, that I was, in the hospital, and I'd never gotten the chance to compete. And I set my sights very high. I wanted to go to the Paralympics in 2006 and ski in Torino, Italy. And I was very determined. I got to tell you this story. I was with my coach, and this was 2004, so 2 years before the 2006 games. And Paul, my coach, he told me, he's like, Josh, I think you should start training for 2010 instead of 2006 because you have no chance of making it to 2006. And I was like, really? No chance at all?